Welcome to the Business Performance Podcast, where we feature expert thought leaders and cover their best strategies, stories, and advice that you can use to successfully mature your own business performance. Now, here is your host, business coach, Henry Schneider. Hello, everyone. This is Henry Schneider with the Business Performance Podcast. Today, it's my pleasure to talk with Kim and Mike Barnes of Barnes Media. They are both former TV anchors. Kim was a news anchor and Mike was the sportscaster for many, many years. And now they have their own little media company that does video coaches. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. We're so glad to be with you tonight.
Good to be here.
Thank you. So I always ask my guests to begin with is to just kind of describe your company, the products and services you offer, and the types of people you are your customers.
Mm-hmm.
We love to do on-camera coaching and training and presentation training. So we love being able to help people first and foremost get more comfortable and confident on camera so that they can do virtual presentations, they can be on video, they can do media interviews, or do public speaking.
Luckily, she's an extrovert. I'm an introvert. So between the two of us, we can connect with anybody. Anybody who's out there who says, oh my gosh, I'm just too much of an extrovert. I can't stay in control. She can teach you how. When you're an introvert, a shy person, and you say, oh my gosh, I'm on camera. I can't ever talk on camera. I say, I'm the same way. And if I can do it, I know you can do it too.
And we love being able to work with either companies that want to improve their on-camera performance, as well as just individuals, small business owners who know and see the value of it and want to make sure that they can incorporate that and use it in their business.
Okay. So one question I've always been kind of curious about, just being on TV in the newsroom. Yeah, everybody thinks, okay, your day is like that half hour time slot.
Oh.
But what are your work hours?
Far from it.
Yeah, far
from it. Oh my gosh. He would work back when Monday Night Football was still on the ABC station. You would go in at 8 in the morning?
Yeah, during football season, I'd go in about 8 or 9 in the morning and not come home until about midnight.
Really?
Because of an early morning football press conference and then late night Monday Night Football. So, yeah, I loved Monday Night Football. I loved watching it. But when it got off of ABC, I was like, oh, thank you. Saved about an hour on my day.
Yeah. And I worked weekends for most of my career. So I would work from, say, 1 in the afternoon on a Saturday or Sunday and get home around 11. And so I, worked weekends when most people were out doing fun things. I was working. So there are very long hours. I remember when the trend first started years ago of them talking about with companies that, maybe we could work 4 10-hour days. And that way we would, people wouldn't have to be in traffic that much. And I thought, oh my gosh, that's awesome. That would be great because I'm already doing that. So, but unfortunately in TV, that didn't fly. So I still continue to work 10 hours a day for 5 days a week. But yeah, that's just the way it is.
So what consumes all your time? Because all we see on TV is just, the half hour news show. So what do you do beforehand and what do you do afterwards?
Well, some of it, I think, depends on if you're actually also going out and reporting. So when you're going out and doing stories, you're setting up interviews, you're figuring out and getting your facts and doing your research, and you spend a lot of time out and about and then coming back and putting that all together. And even when you're anchoring, I would find that I'm helping to sort of help produce some of the other stories that are being done. And so there's just always stuff to do.
Yeah. And for me as a sportscaster, especially in the fall, when I would have a high school football show to put together to produce on Friday night and a college football show to put together that's going to run on Saturday, had to do that along with my 6 and 10 p.m. sportscast. So putting all of that together and doing other stuff to help my reporters to do other stuff around the office, so to speak. 60, 70-hour weeks during the fall. So it adds up.
Yeah, there's no time for going out for lunches or anything like that. I actually could remember that I could count the number of times that I actually didn't either eat in the car or at my desk. Yeah. So it's a busy schedule for sure.
When our kids were young and when our oldest started school, I told Kim, I'm going to drive him to school every day. I'm going to do carpool. And she's like, oh, no, I've got some other moms who would love to help you out. And I was like, no, I want to drive him every day. And partly it was because I love my kids, but also partly because I knew the way my schedule was, especially in the fall, I knew that if I took him to school on Thursday morning and didn't take him to school on Friday, I wouldn't see him again until maybe Sunday, because not because I was out of town, but because I would work until midnight on Thursday because of high school football games, going late and doing stuff after the show for the web and such. And then Friday,
Same thing.
if I was sleeping because I got home late and he didn't see me on Friday morning, I wouldn't be home until after midnight Friday. A lot of times I would get up and go to work immediately on Saturday morning because I'd have a football game to cover with the Longhorns, or go out of town to go to Waco or Lubbock or Fort Worth or something like that, where, again, I might not see him. It's like, I don't want to do that. I want to take him to school, and my daughter too, when she got to go to school. I want to take him every day just in case if there's a day when I don't see him. And there were many days when I couldn't come home for dinner. So the only time I got to see him was that time when I was making breakfast, making their lunch to take to school, and then driving them to school and dropping them off. So if you want to stay close with your family, you've got to do stuff like that.
It's a tough, it's a tough schedule for sure.
Yeah, it's like this. Nobody, you don't even think about that. But I mean, it's a harder schedule than most other people have.
Well, and if you think about it, for the 10 o'clock news, most people are where are most people watching that while they're in bed about to go to sleep, and you're still on and ready to go, and so you don't get home until 11, and then you've been working until then. So yeah, it's a much different schedule. And if you're doing a morning show, oh my goodness, gosh, that's crazy
world,
too.
yes.
Yeah, for sure.
That's gotta be crazy. Okay, all right. So now with your media consulting group, I always kind of want to focus on that. I always ask everybody, my guests, about the word quality, because quality is a very broad, vague term. So what does it mean to you when you're talking to the people that you're coaching?
About quality?
Yes.
I think so much of it is, how can they feel comfortable with what they're producing? Because they need to be able to I want them to be able to watch themselves, whether they're doing a video themselves or doing a media interview or having presented, and feel really good about what they did. And so for me, it's figuring out what is their expectation and what is their ability, and being able to match those together so that they can be as authentically themselves as possible, because it's much easier to be yourself than it is anybody else. But also, how do they come across as their best self, if that makes sense?
I think for me, that when a person sees another person face to face, and you go up to somebody, whether it's a friend or a client, or you're making a sales call or anything like that, you're going to go up, you're going to have a good handshake. You're going to look them in the eye. You're going to smile. You're going to talk to them. You're going to be expressive with them. You're going to tell them a good story. You're going to tell them good facts. You're going to do the best you can to leave a good impression with them. But so many people get on camera and they're kind of down here, and they're looking over here and talking over here. And Henry, let me tell you about this, and this. And it's like, okay, you're not looking me in the eye. You're not sitting up straight. You're not looking good. And I think that when the pandemic hit back in March, and so many more people, almost everybody, I know not quite, but so many people had to get on shots like this, Zoom platforms or other virtual platforms, to be able to talk to people and see them face to face, sort of. I think there was a lot of grace at the time, because there was just a case of, oh my gosh,
we have the technology, we can do it.
I can't believe I actually see Henry here. Well, hi Henry, you actually see me. This is amazing. And the shots look terrible. They're the proverbial, you're on your phone and you're shooting up to your nose shots where the lighting was bad, where you had a bad background, so many bad things. But we were able to keep doing our business, even though we were stuck at home in the pandemic. But as the pandemic has gone on and on and on into month 4 and coming up on month 5, and it gets worse and worse and worse, and who knows how long it's going to last, I think the grace has slowly gone away, to where more people expect, going back to the meeting with someone in person and looking your best, acting your best, presenting your best. And now people are expecting that same type of presentation through a virtual platform, as opposed to just, as long as we can see it, it's okay.
Yeah. And when you have a big frame like this is great. A lot of times when you got the Brady Bunch and you get so many people you can't see them at all.
Oh, it's hard. Yeah, no, I mean, it's a challenge, because you're still trying to be engaging and be able to make those connections like you do when you're in person. And it's more challenging, certainly, when you're virtual.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So what are two of the biggest misconceptions out there when it comes to quality and trying to give a good video presentation?
I think to me, the biggest, just because of being a shy introvert, I think so many people think to be good on camera, you have to be an extrovert. You have to be a people person, and you have to be so expressive because you're used to being on stage and being almost like a vaudeville act, being a drama major or something like that. No, it doesn't have to be like that. I tell people all the time that I learned two things early on. Number one, the camera does not bite. So it's okay. No matter what you do, the camera's not going to boo you or hiss you or throw anything at you. The camera is fine. The camera's going to like you. Be yourself. If you're good one-on-one with a person in real life, you're going to be fine on camera. Second thing is you've just got to picture someone on the other side of that camera, whether it's a friend, your wife, a perfect client, a family member, whoever it may be. Picture that person and then communicate with that lens like you're talking to that person. Show the same passion, the same energy, especially let that passion come out through your eyes, and you're going to do great. And I tell people, it sounds kind of funny. You're going to feel like you're kind of acting a little bit, but just imagine the reception that you get one-on-one. Have the same thing happen with the camera lens, and it may sound funny, but it worked for me, and I got a lot of awards in 30 years as a sportscaster. So if I can do it, anybody can.
And I also think a lot of times people think, oh, I need a big production team and I need to have all of this fancy equipment to be able to make things happen and make videos happen. And the truth is, if you have a little bit of equipment is helpful, and you've got good lighting and you've got good sound, you can do amazing work with just your phone. And so, and just a little bit of knowledge to make sure that you know how to use it, but you can do some really amazing things with very little equipment.
Yeah. So the one thing that always kind of gets me is that, right now I've got it set up, I'm on the right, you're on the left, but I'm looking at you. So I want to feel like I'm interacting with you, but then I'm not looking at the camera. So how do you balance that? Because you want to look natural, but you also want to feel like you're interacting with the person you're talking to.
Well, I have a hashtag look at the lens, because I think that is one of the most important things, especially when you're creating video, because you want to make sure that you want people to feel like you're looking right at them. And I do think it's challenging when we're doing Zoom, because I can see you, but I'm not looking at you exactly right this second, because if I look at you on the screen, then you don't feel like I'm talking right to you. If I want you to feel like I'm talking right to you, I have to look at the lens. And that's the way that the person on the other side is going to feel like you're making eye contact with them. And it feels really weird, but that's the best way I know how to make sure that that person really feels like I'm talking right to them.
Yeah, Kim likes to say it's a little dance, and I'm a terrible dancer, but I'm able to do this really well, because you just have to know that when you're talking, you look at the lens. When Henry's talking, I can look down and look at him, and that's fine. It doesn't mean that you have to have a staring contest with the lens. It's not like, okay, I'm stuck on the lens, and if I'm talking, I can't do anything else. And oh my gosh, I can't do anything. If you need to look down, at your phone because something just beeped, if you need to look down at Henry because you're going to say something amazing, you want to see his reaction, you can do that. You don't have to be stuck to the lens, but most of the time you want to come back to the lens, because the worst thing you can do is be looking over here and look at your notes and be talking about, well, Henry, let me tell you what, I've had a great time as a sportscaster during all this time. You're not connecting that way. You've got to look at somebody to connect. If Kim and I are talking and I'm looking down here the whole time, it's just not going to work. So you have to look at the lens when you can.
Okay. So what's the biggest challenge you face when you are coaching people?
Sometimes I think it's that it's so easy for us to get in our own way. And so we just really struggle with overthinking and also with perfectionism. And I will say that is something that I have always struggled with. I don't know that I could even say I'm a recovering perfectionist, because it's a work in progress. But I do think for those of us who are perfectionists, it's really challenging, because you are wanting it to be perfect, and it's probably never going to be. So whenever you're with anything that there's always going to be something to do differently, or you would look at later and think, oh, I would have done it differently. So I think that the challenge is, one, just helping to build people's confidence and helping them see. And that's been what's so fun, is that we had a student recently who had been saying she was going to do a workshop for probably 2 years and finally did it. She said, okay, I'm doing this. And she said, in the first few days, I just really didn't even like it because I was so scared and nervous. But by the end of it, I walked by and I heard her and I said, oh my gosh, is that? And it was a transformation. So I think that when you see stories like that, you just know that you can bring people out and bring them with you. But I think the challenge is sometimes helping people see that it's possible beforehand, because they just think, no, you couldn't do it for me.
Yep. That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of leads into my next question. I think you kind of anticipated. So what are the techniques that you use to get people to overcome these fears and challenges so they feel comfortable?
I sort of think that when you know what you can do, what you can control to make sure you're going to look and sound good, just that in and of itself builds your confidence, because you know you're going to sit down or stand up or wherever you are, that you're going to look and sound good. And then you can just be focusing on, what do I want to say? And also, I think some of it is really helping people see that they have value to share, and that there is a reason for them to be able to share that expertise, and that they're the expert, so that they can feel confident in what they know.
I think two of the biggest things that I do is, number one is I make them know that they don't have to get out a piece of paper and write down exactly what they're going to say and memorize it. Because to me, that's one of the worst things you can do, because unless you're amazing, it's hard to memorize that much. If it's a 10-second speech, something quick, yes, you can do that. We all had to do that to do promotion stuff in TV. Yes, that I understand. But when you're going to talk for a minute, 2 minutes, 15 minutes, a 25-minute speech, it's hard to memorize everything. You may say some similar things, but you're not going to do it word for word the exact way. And once people understand that, if you trust yourself and know the plan that you have, things are going to be okay. And it's hard to get over that hump, but once you do that, it helps a lot. And the other thing is being conversational, because so many people, once they get on camera and they get a little bit nervous and they start
deer in the headlights.
Yeah, well, they're reading off the back of their eyelids, and they're, "Hi, Henry. My name is Mike, and I'm with Barnes Team Media, and we're here to help people be more comfortable and effective." You can't do it that way. You have to almost pretend like you're talking to your best friend on the phone, even though you have to look good and you have to look them in the eye and through the camera lens. But one of the things that we tell people is, okay, I want you to pick up a phone and just pretend like you're talking to somebody on the phone, a good friend. Talk to a good friend and talk to them about something. And then they do that and they go, oh, yeah, I sound more energetic. I sound like I really like what I'm talking about, as opposed to the deer in the headlights and not sounding very enthused.
And that's also kind of like when you have a presentation, you put it up, people just read all the words, read the title. Now I'm going to talk about blah, blah, blah. And they read everything. And like, okay, it turns it right off.
Right, because then the people are so focused on just reading, and they're not then even listening to you at the same time. Yeah.
So what are some of the perceived obstacles that may be preventing you from achieving the success that you see?
The perceived obstacles for us as a business?
Yeah.
Getting the word out is the biggest thing, I think, especially in today's world, where in the old days, if you put an ad on TV, even on the radio, but especially on TV, so many people watch. Ratings were through the roof back in the 80s, where half the people in Austin would watch just one certain TV channel. And now combined, it's about, let me think, it's probably about 15% of the viewers of the population are watching TV on any given night. It's just amazing the difference, because of the internet, social media, cable TV, and all that. It's harder. There are lots of different ways to get your word out. If you want to put it out on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, or
just a lot of noise,
or any type of podcast, there's a lot of different ways. But it's just, you're getting small little pieces of the pie. It's hard to get one big piece of the pie to get the word out about what you can do.
And there's a lot of noise out there for sure. So it's hard sometimes to get noticed. And I think that for some people, it's also helping to actually really understand the value and why it's so beneficial to be really good on camera. Because it's not just for, I want to become a YouTube sensation. It's not that at all. It can be just, I want to be this, I'm the CEO, and I want to make sure that when I'm doing a presentation for my employees, that I command attention and I command authority. So it can be something in that realm. It can also be the fact that, if we can get really good at being virtual and being effective with whether it's sales or in leadership or just running our companies this way, think about the amount of money that companies can save from travel and time in the car or time on airplanes or hotels. If you're having to go see a client maybe once a quarter instead of once a month, or once a year instead of once every quarter, think of the amount of money that we can save. But we do need to make sure that we're being effective and that we can be doing it as well or almost as well as we do in person. And while we can't beat that in-person interaction, I mean, you can't beat that. There's still, if we can be as close to effective as possible, we can save ourselves and be much more efficient with our time and cost effective as well.
Yeah, and the other thing too is that a lot of what I've noticed is people who are not comfortable come off being awkward when they're trying to make a joke or kind of lead in. They don't really have a good story to tie things together, and then they lose you.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things we try to help people is sort of, if you don't want to just pop on and just say, hey, I just thought I'd pop on and see what comes out of my mouth tonight, so that you want to make, when you have a plan and you kind of know where you're going and where you're ending before you start, it's going to help you have a lot more confidence when you get in there, because it's inevitable that very often you're going to forget something that you were planning to say. And so you just need to make sure that you have enough sort of dialed in, if you will. So that's okay, that you still can proceed as effectively anyway.
Know what your purpose is. Why are you doing this? Are you just trying to fill 30 seconds or 3 minutes or 30 minutes of time? Or is there a reason behind why you're doing this? And that's such a key, especially on video, because of so many, hate to pick on them, but so many kids just get on camera and just start rambling. And if it's one thing if you're a kid doing that, it's another thing if you're a business person and you have something to say, something to sell, something to manage, something to create, and all you're doing is rambling. You're wasting time and effort. So you want to make sure you're getting the best of both worlds.
Well, I think one of the takeaways I had from your seminar last week was having 3 stories and relate the stories, and that engages people. Then as long as the stories relate to the point you're trying to communicate.
Right.
Yeah. Stories are what we remember. That, if with any good presentation, most of the time, that even with the best of presentations, the story is going to be the part that you remember, which then helps you hopefully remember the main points of the presentation.
Yeah.
So stories are just so vital.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's part of like when you listen to preachers too. I mean, it's amazing to me. They can get up there and talk for 45 minutes nonstop, but they're relating all different types of things together.
And your best ones have great stories involved, and that's usually what you walk away remembering the most.
Ours always says, hey, did I ever tell you the story about, and then he doesn't tell us a nice story, but it's funny too, and it really illustrates the point he's trying to get across.
Exactly.
For sure. Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
So could you share a story of how you helped somebody overcome all these obstacles and succeed?
Well, gosh, there's so many. I'm trying to think of just, kind of the one that I was thinking of earlier was just, somebody who had just been kicking and screaming, saying, I know I need to do this. I know I need to do this, but I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. And just being able to give them the confidence. And, a lot of what we do in one of our programs is what we call micro learning. So you're learning just a little bit at a time, and you're practicing and getting coaching as you're doing that so that it sticks. Because so many of these things, when you can make them a habit, then they just become part of the way you communicate. And when that happens, then you're not even thinking about all that other stuff. You're then able just to focus on what I'm actually talking about today. So I think that she's a great example that by the end, she said, wow, I was actually kind of looking forward to when I got to do my videos, because I felt like, I know I can do this. I can do this. And, she said, now, while I'm still necessarily not going to be like begging for opportunities to be on camera, I know that I can. And that she was one of the best examples of just somebody who really just was fearful of the idea. And then we have so many people who are people that aren't necessarily, they're just nervous and awkward and uncomfortable. And by the end of our program can really feel like, yeah, this is a great vital way for me to be able to grow my business, is by using video.
Or even off of video. Before the pandemic hit, when you could talk in public, we talked to one lady who came to us for help because she was going to do a TED Talk, and it was a day-long lots of people doing TED Talks, and she got picked and she was able to do one. And she came to us with her idea and about how it was going to be working. And she'd never really talked much on stage, and she wasn't exactly sure how to put her TED Talk together. So we didn't create the story, but we told her, okay, let's take, you have A, B, C, and D, but let's make it B and then D, and then let's do C and then E, and kind of rearrange it a little bit, and worked with her about how she should use her hand gestures, her voice, and different things about presenting and talking to an audience, because it was in front of an audience of, I don't know, about 200 or 300 people. And I went to the TED Talk that day and listened to her, and she did great. And the best part about it was not that she did great, but then I watched other people who, of course, did not learn from us. And I watched how she did in comparison to them. I was like, yes, we have the best one there.
It's like our racehorse,
That's
you know?
right. Yeah. Being proud about winning the Kentucky Derby.
Yeah.
All right, so if you could distill all that down to 25 words or less, what would be the moral of the story?
Let me think. Gosh, that's tough.
That is a tough one.
I think it's being comfortable and confident in what you know, knowing what you can control, knowing how to improve your own presence to the best of your ability, and going for it.
And also knowing the importance, because even before this happened with the pandemic, it was big, but now it is huge. And I think that you're gonna see that companies, salesmen, CEOs, everyone in between who can get on camera like this and can communicate and connect with whoever's watching, whether it is a fellow businessman, whether it's a client, whether it's someone they're just hoping to get a bid from or to give a bid to. Once you're able to communicate that and let that passion come out through your eyes, because I just think it's so different being on the phone and trying to sell somebody something, as opposed to being able to see them and see that they're not just back there going, yeah, okay, Mike, yeah, okay, like, and, hanging up. You can see
off to the side and do
exactly. You can see that they're excited. You can see that what you have done has helped. What you've done has got them enthused about your product, about your company, about whatever you're talking about. And if they can know the importance of that and see that it could be revolutionary for so many companies. Thanks to the pandemic making you go that way, but it can save them so much money and make them so much money and make you stand out from your competition if you're really good at this.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that has come out of this is that people are saying communication is better, that they're communicating more with their employees because they're being forced into it. And that's kind of an interesting thing, is that you can figure, well, why weren't we communicating with them before this? And
well, now we're just having to be so intentional. And I think that, in an office, you just get busy and everybody's doing their own thing. And now this is really the only way, where you might have just, thought, oh, I'll just go walk down to their office, and then you got busy or sidetracked on your way. Now, I think people are having to be really intentional, because they know that they want to keep their employees engaged and on track. What is everybody working on today? Because we can't see you. So I think it's great as an opportunity to be able to really communicate with your people. And I think, a lot of tech companies have had virtual employees and had people in other parts of the country for a while, but there are so many companies that have never had to deal with this before, that everybody works in the office and comes in the office if they need help. So, or in the store. And so I think there's a lot of companies that are really hopefully embracing this new option, and because that will help them be more effective.
And especially, I'd say major corporations, but corporations that have offices around the state, around the world, around the country, wherever it is, where they're not in just one building, to where now maybe they understand that, as opposed to just sending out an email to rally the troops, so to speak. Now you can easily either get on a webinar, get on a Zoom meeting, send out a video of your own that's embedded in the video, and you can inspire your company, your employees, so much better through video of them seeing you, as opposed to just having words on the screen. And hopefully they're understanding that, and they're reaping the benefits.
Because we have to think that video is the next best thing to being there, because we can, while you can't beat being in person, video is the next best thing because you can actually see people, you can see their response, you can see their reactions. It's harder to read their body language when it's virtual versus when you're next to each other, but it's still so beneficial because again, they can see your eyes, you can make that eye contact that you can't do when you're just on the phone or reading an email.
So when you're going through your workshops, what are some of the common pitfalls or mistakes that people keep making that they have to keep in mind so they can improve?
Looking at the lens,
That's
is
the number one.
is huge. I think that a lot of times people are tempted to want to write out a script, if you will, and think, oh, you won't be able to tell that I'm reading it. I'm just gonna sneak over to the side and I'm gonna put it next to my lens, and you're not gonna be able to tell that I'm reading and not looking at the camera. So a lot of times people think, ooh, I'll fake you out, but it's hard to do. It's hard to do.
Camera angle, headroom, and background are huge. I mean, it doesn't sound like much, but if you have a bright window behind you, it's like, oh my gosh, I want you to see our backyard because so that's going to be great. Well, that window is going to be really bright. And because of that, the camera's going to iris down, so we're going to be looking like shadows, and it's just not going to look good. You think it will because when you turn around, it's like, oh, that looks so great. Camera's a little bit different than your eye as far as picking up the light. So you've got to think about that. You got to think about the headroom because I always like to compare that. I tell our students when they have troubles with it, I say, think about it like a school picture. If you brought home, if your child brings home a school picture and there's this much headroom and they see, from chin up and there's all this headroom above them in the school picture, you're going to say, what was wrong with the photographer?
I'm not paying for that.
Yeah, that looks terrible. Well, it's the same thing if you're on a Zoom meeting or anything else to where, you're way down here and you have all this headroom up here and you're seeing basically neck up. Okay, that makes no sense. It's not just the normal thing that people are going to expect. Now, maybe there's a reason behind it. Maybe over your head it says, Team Media, call us today or something like that. So there's a meaning behind it, then it makes sense. But those are the exceptions to the rule. So you've just got to understand that there are things like that can be a distraction that you don't want, because the worst thing you can have on video is if it has no meaning, it becomes a distraction. And the people aren't listening to you anymore. They're going, why does he have all that headroom? What's that window in the background? I can't even see him. And they miss everything that you just said.
Yeah, I was on a meeting actually just this morning, and somebody popped on and had this super bright window on, and you literally could not see her face. So because she was so bright, and if you're not making eye contact, then you're not able to connect. If we can't see your eyes, we can't connect.
Yeah, I interviewed somebody several weeks ago with that. They had a great. I said, "Can you close the blinds?" Because all I see is a silhouette.
Yeah. So some of it, I think, is just being aware, because of course, we don't know what we don't know, and for many people, they've never had to be on video for their job, and so. How would you know that that's a problem until you see that it is? And then it's a lot of it is just becoming aware of what are the things that I should watch out for that will, again, if people are distracted, they're not listening to you.
All right, so let's kind of shift gears a little bit. And we talked about this for a few moments before we started. So, Kim, what was the defining moment that inspired both you and Mike to create Barnes Media?
Well, I think for me, it was about 15 years ago when I was still at the TV station, and I had been working weekends, and I was just working part-time. So I was anchoring on the weekends, which had been great. Our kids were little, they were 4 and 7, but I've been doing that for 4 years. But it came time where they just said, we don't, at first they didn't even know what to do with a part-time salaried person. They thought, well, do you get vacation? We're not really sure. This is just weird, because normally they didn't let on-air people be part-time. So I was super grateful. But anyway, at the end of 4 years, I knew that my luck, that my opportunity was probably going to run out, which I'd been given some warning about. And I was basically told, you have to be full-time or no time. And I just, at that time, with the age of our children and our crazy schedules, I decided that being full-time was going to be a real big challenge, because it's hard to really have a babysitter who you say, yeah, I think I'll be home around 6, maybe 7, maybe 7:30. That's okay, right? So we just knew that it was going to be really challenging. So I chose to leave the TV station, which was, we left on great terms and it was fine. And I've done work for them ever since, actually. But I think that it was, that was a real clear, it was a God sign for me that it was just time to leave and do something different. I did sales for a few years, and also though started doing some consulting and media training along the way. And then about the time several years ago when Facebook Live kind of hit the scene at the very, very beginning, I noticed and saw an opportunity for now really anyone, business people, for them to be able to really harness the power of video and be able to use it to grow their business. So I started doing workshops and trainings then. And so I was doing it mostly on my own because he was still working and he would help me on occasion. But I was doing that along with the freelance work that I did. And then he joined me about a year ago after he lost his job.
All right. Okay. So another question sort of in the same direction, but a little bit different. Thinking about growing up, could you share an experience that you had growing up that still affects how you approach business today?
That's
interesting.
A tough one.
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a very good question. Wow.
I would just think that, I guess what I would think is that I always thought if you work hard enough, you can make something happen. And I think that for the most part, that's kind of always driven me, that if there's something that I want to do, then I just know I need to work hard enough to make it happen.
I'm thinking that I was lucky enough. My parents were supportive enough and nice enough that they let me be creative as I was growing up. And I didn't have a normal job when I got of age, when I was in high school. My parents, my dad's a businessman, an accountant, and my dad supported me to let me start my own company. And I had a baseball card company for, 82 to 87-ish, I guess, so about 5 years. And they let me learn a lot. I learned a lot about business, a lot about interacting with people. We'd go to baseball card shows and have that little table where I'd sell my baseball cards, and my parents helped me out a little bit, but people would come up and I'd have to learn how to be nice to the customer. So here's a shy guy, but I know a lot about sports, a lot about baseball cards, and they interacting with people and learning about business, about the supply and demand and how to make sure you make a profit and what's a loss leader and stuff like that. So things like that, helped me out to where even today, after 29 years on the job, losing my job and realizing that, okay, that doesn't mean I have to get the normal 9-to-5 job, that you can still be creative and work from home and do what we're doing now with our company and still basically make ends meet if you can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he's always coming up with something. He was probably one of the first people that was selling stuff on eBay. He's written a couple books that he sold on eBay for, I remember when he first wrote a book about Magnum PI, and he looked into, finding a publisher. And I think when he finally found something, he realized, you make like 50 cents or something a book. Yeah. And then he ended up putting it on eBay and somebody bid and paid $50 for it. So you realize,
there's other ways to do it.
So yeah. He's always coming up with ideas like that.
Okay. So what does success look like for Barnes Team Media?
Goodness.
What does success look like? Lots of clients, lots of people who understand that again, in today's world, even when this pandemic ends, which hopefully it will someday, but even when this ends, that this type of communication, going through Zoom, any virtual platform, doing Facebook Live, a video on Instagram, a video on Twitter, videos are so important because, again, what we've already said about it's better than the phone. It's not as good as being in person, but it can save you so much more money, so much more time, and you can communicate and connect so well through the camera lens. And I think it's going to make so many companies stand out. And as companies realize that and realize what they can gain, what they can save, and that they need us to help them get there, then that's the success right there.
And I think that companies will see that the world is not going to ever be the same. I don't think we'll ever go back to completely the way we did things before. And for me personally, I love when I have one of those stories from somebody who says, oh my gosh, this has been just amazing. So I love having those success stories. They, just the other day, I felt like a proud mom because we were working with a huge corporation that was doing a bid presentation that has always been done in person. And now they're having to do it virtually. And when I checked in with them before the presentation, they just said that every single one of the people that we had worked with had said, oh my gosh, we feel so much more prepared and we know we're ready because of you. And so for me, that was just like proud mom, that I love feeling like I can have some impact on the success of other people is such a driving force for me, because you want them to succeed, and knowing that I just had this little bitty part in their success, whether it was just helping them build their confidence, giving them the skills, whatever it is such a proud moment for me.
Well, we worked with a man who's a trainer at a big corporation here in town. We worked with him about, his ability to speak on camera, to connect on camera, because he'd been used to doing it in person. And now he's going to have to do it through a virtual platform. And he talks to us, he finishes the course and gets certified from our course. And about a week later or so, we talked to him. He says, oh, you won't believe this, but I was on a Zoom meeting with about 100 plus people.
All other facilitators from around the world.
And I had to talk for a little while. And at the end, they're like, oh my gosh, you were so good. I felt like you were talking right to me. How did you do that? It's amazing what you're doing. And we're like, exactly. That's what we're trying to teach people, because it's so much better. And people just don't understand that just one little thing about looking, instead of looking here, but looking up here is the world of difference.
That's
and
right.
Just hearing him come to us and say, wow, you just made such a difference for me. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a great feeling.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, another comes from left field now. As business owners, what are your top 3 concerns?
Top 3 concerns as a business owner. I think one is producing happy clients is always a concern, that you want to make sure that clients are getting the benefit and the value that you have to offer. Mm-hmm. I think one is always making sure that you have, in a consulting, training, coaching kind of world, very often you're always looking for that next company, that next business owner.
The next company are also being able to pivot a little bit, because kind of like when the pandemic hit, if we kept going this way, then it may not have helped, but we were able to pivot a little bit this way, and it helped. And the third thing for me, and this just because of someone who lost a job 15 months ago, is that when you're a business owner, then getting clients is all about your way of life. And it's not like for 29 plus years, I knew I was going to get the same paycheck every 2 weeks. I didn't have to worry about it, whether I was sick, had a great week, had a great 2 weeks, had a bad 2 weeks, or whatever was going on, that paycheck was there. Just had to pick it up, go to the bank, or watch it go in direct deposit. It's completely different when you own your own business and you're waiting on a client, or you put out a couple of bids and you're waiting for them to call you back. And they don't realize that, okay, we're waiting anxiously because we've got this bid where we're hoping to get a couple $1,000s out of you. And you're like, yeah, maybe in September or so I'll get back to you. It's like, oh, really? Yeah. So,
hurry up and
like that.
Exactly.
Right.
Okay. So if you now kind of reflecting back now, if you had to start Barnes Team Media over again from scratch, what would you do different today, and what would you keep doing the same?
Wow. Great questions, by the way.
Yeah.
Great questions.
Tough ones.
Yeah.
I think that probably focusing on, let me think. I don't know. I think probably getting, because of my perfectionism, I was probably trying to get too many things kind of in a row, like getting my ducks in a row before I felt like, oh, we should tell people that we're doing this. So I think that some of it is just sort of getting not started faster, but sort of getting the word out there faster, so that because it takes a while to build momentum. And I also think that it would have, if we had started doing, our own videos and getting out and speaking more, that probably would have been beneficial too.
Yeah. I think for me, we had an idea about one certain profession. I'm not going to name it because I don't want to upset anybody, but we had an idea about one certain profession who really needed our help. But then we found out that even though they needed our help, they weren't that interested in paying for it. So hard to make money off of somebody who doesn't want to pay for it. So because of that, not that we would have ignored them completely, but we wouldn't have focused so much on, okay, that's our
niche,
our niche, our moneymaker is that's how we're really going to make Barnes Team Media explode. And no, let's pivot over here and let's do it this way instead.
Yeah. Well, in my experience, a lot of times I call it like a 12-step process because everybody's in this first step. They're in denial that they need help.
Yeah.
And they're only going to come to you when something bad has happened to them already.
That's true.
Right.
And that's the thing, not to thank the pandemic for forcing people to understand, but that's one of the hardest things, at least for me, and Kim's a little bit better as an extrovert than I am about it, but it's hard to go up to somebody and say, Henry, you're doing really good, but can I give you some tips? I've got about 7 tips to give you because I think you'd be a lot better if you did this and this and this.
Right.
Yeah, it's nice of me to say that, but it's not exactly a boost to your ego when you do that to somebody.
Well, you don't want to be like the skincare person who says, "Hey, I can help you with those wrinkles," So it's or the plastic surgeon or whoever it is. It's hard because you don't want to. That you can help. I mean, I see people all the time that I think, "Oh, I could help you," and sometimes it's a matter of, would you like a suggestion?
Mm-hmm.
But, it's hard to give unsolicited advice, even though you sort of, and I don't like to do that unless.
I think it's one thing if you go up to somebody and you say, look, I've got some tips for your taxes. I know how to save you a little bit of money here. Right. Hey, I've got some tips for your electric bill. I know how to help you out with your air conditioning and this and this, or I've got some tips for your house and carpentry, things that are going to help. And you're not really saying, you're not very good.
Well, it's personal. It's very personal.
Because it is personal for so many of us to where you're kind of hitting us almost below the belt. Like, hey,
right.
I thought I was better than that. And you're saying I'm not very good. So a lot of times, unfortunately, you have to find somebody who is down on themselves, doesn't have a lot of confidence.
Well, or has a coworker
or know somebody who needs the help.
Mm-hmm.
But it's hard to find somebody. You see so many people. That's one thing that this has happened with the pandemic with Zoom, where so many people out there are maybe a little overconfident. And I was like that when I was first on TV back in the late 80s, early 90s, where I thought I was good. And I look back at those tapes now and go, ooh,
not so much.
Not so much. But you get a little overconfident because you're proud of yourself. You're proud of what you're doing, whether you're a salesman, a CEO, or anywhere in between. You're proud of yourself. And if someone's going to come up to you and say, yeah, you're not very good,
it's hard not to take it personally.
It's hard not to take it personally. So once you see something to where you're able to do something on a Zoom call or something, and somebody either points it out to you or you see a replay and go, oh yeah, how come I don't look very good there? How come that, wow, people don't like that shoot up my nose. What's wrong with that? I didn't understand.
Mm-hmm.
Having the camera down here is not good. So
once I said every 7.
Once people understand something like that, then it helps. But just going up to somebody and saying, you don't look very good, let me help you out, it's tough to do. And I don't really enjoy that part.
Well, yeah, I mean, we wouldn't do that. So yeah.
Well, I know that, having done this so many times now, I feel myself more comfortable in being able to conduct these podcasts. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times when I go back and edit these down, I always hear, like, I talk loudly and say, okay, so, and I realize I got these little connectors in there that don't have anything. So I'm trying consciously not to say that in between, but to try to keep the conversation moving. And that's difficult.
It takes knowledge and practice, really. It takes awareness, a little knowledge to know what to do, and then just practicing it over and over and over again. For sure, that's the way we all get better.
That's right.
Okay, we're rapidly running out of time, and I don't want to eat too much of your day up with this. So thank you so much for your time today. So how can people get in touch with you to learn more?
The easiest place to find us is on our website, which is just barnesteammedia.com. We have we have a YouTube channel with some videos with tips and tricks that are kind of fun to be able to give you just some little quick information.
But we have all sorts of things on our website that tells you different courses we offer, different ways we can work with you, also different resources that you might need if you need a light or a microphone or something like that can help you out. And we're easy to get a hold of because I'm Mike and she's Kim at barnesteammedia.com. So it's easy to email us.
Okay, great. Well, Kim and Mike, it's been a pleasure talking with you this evening. Like, we could just go on and on and on, but again, I want to honor your time. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I know you have to. I'm going to have to keep thinking about. I have some of these questions. I bet I'm going to keep thinking about tonight. So probably come up with better answers later. But
right.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the Business Performance Podcast with your business coach, Henry Schneider. For more episodes and business strategies, please visit welcome.ppqc.net/blog. That's www.welcome.ppqc.net/blog. And remember to subscribe so you can get the latest episodes. Thank you.